there. And definitely need to make sure the sound is off there or we get a reverberation, twice the voice of what we want. Neither too much nor too little. We're aiming for the middle way. Okay. All right. So it's good to be with everyone this morning. This is inspired by what came up last week at the end of it about the question about night, and I brought up the sutta on a single excellent night. So I thought we could just go over that sutta today. And actually, it's a set of 4 suttas, so we'll see how far we get in that process. So I'll start with Namo Tassa, and then we'll go into a screen share and the suttas. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sangham namasami. So, let's see, screen sharing. Share. Okay, great. So rather than sharing the Sutta Central site, which by now I think you're all able to get to on your own, I've cut and pasted most of it into here, Bhante Sujato's version, so that I could also intersperse other translations and notes directly in the one document. So this sutta is called the Bhaddekarattasutta, and we'll get to that, how it got so named and what that name even means in very short order within the sutta. So this sutta starts out with the Buddha being in Anathapindika's park and coming out to address the monastics. And there may have been lay people there as well. Often they'll just take whatever the senior most of an assembly and address the sutta toward that person or group. So the Buddha says, I shall teach you the summary, recital, and the analysis of the one who has one fine night. So first we'll get to the one fine night part, but first I'll say summary, recital, and analysis. So this is a common way that teachings were offered. It could be in brief, a summary, or it could be expanded, an analysis, a vibhanga of it. And in this case, the Buddha says he's going to give both the short and the long of it. Although this sutta appears in the middle length discourses, 131, it's actually a fairly short sutta for that collection. So let's get to how this sutta was named, the Bhaddekarattasutta. So we'll split out that compound word into 3 pieces. And this sutta has been translated a number of different ways. I'll scroll down. One fortunate attachment, a single excellent night, a fortunate night of oneness. And I'm going to jump to, I agree with Bhante Sudaso on this one. The Buddha was a master of nuances within language, and none of these titles is amiss when we look at the content of the sutta. So go ahead and pick your favorite, or I've practiced experimenting with, well, if it means this, how would it impact my practice? If it means that, how would it impact my practice? And since the impact has been always favorable and leading toward good meditation and good life, do not worry about the nuances, although it can be a little bit fun. So we'll cover it at a brief. The Bada, that's agreed on, that's kind of the it's a good, it's fortunate, lucky, high, fine. So we've got this quality of goodness. Eka is one, and from that you can kind of see the single or the solo, the solitary. Oh yeah, another one is ideal. Let's see, ideal solitude is another one that's this translation. So the oneness is the eka. And if you've studied enough Pali around the meditation practices, you'll see that term eka come up as like one pointed as a translation. And I prefer more of an attending, a oneness. And then the last part, the rata, where they get the attachment part in that particular translation is going back, that rata is the past participle of rajati, which is an excited and attached to, finding pleasure in. And so this is kind of saying, well, there is actually one fortunate or positive attachment that we get when we're doing meditation, we're practicing in the present moment. A more likely and common usage would have been that rata comes from night. And that doesn't necessarily mean only when the moon is up and the sun is not. Just like we'll say, well, I was there for a day. That actually, for us in our language, often includes the nighttime period. It's a segment of time that's less than 2 days. They tended in that language scheme to use night to signify a period of approximately 24 hours. So you could apply this to being a segment of a day or night, or the entirety of, or just kind of like all of the days, all of the time. So I did take a screenshot from Bhikkhu Tanajayo, has a nice presentation out there, and he focuses more on the oneness, the meditation quality of it. And his sense of it is that the interpretations all point to the transformative power of the present moment, and also to meditation. So let's just kind of go with that as the theme, and then we'll get into the sutta. Listen and apply your mind well. I will speak, said the Buddha. So here we're already getting the listen and apply your mind. So it's not being mindless, it's not forgetting everything, which, if you want to take the literal, don't think of the past or the future, well, don't think. Yes, in meditation, but not when reviewing the suttas or daily life. So the Buddha is not castigating thinking in its entirety. He's basically saying, apply it rightly. So I'm going to read through 3 translations of the summary, the verse part of it, before we start to go into the Pali details. And once we get into the details, then if questions arise, please let me know. So, and you'll see some are more poetic than others, some are more literal, and they interpret words slightly differently. So the first, Venerable Bodhi. Let not a person revive the past, or on the future build their hopes, for the past has been left behind, and the future has not been reached. Instead, with insight, let them see each presently arisen state. Let them know that and be sure of it, invincibly, unshakably. Today, the effort must be made. Tomorrow, death may come. Who knows? No bargain with mortality can keep death and his hordes away. But one who dwells thus ardently, relentlessly, by day, by night, that is one, the peaceful sage has said, who has had a single excellent night. I love the poetry of that version. Here's Venerable Tenisero. You shouldn't chase after the past or place expectations on the future. What is past is left behind. The future is as yet unreached. Whatever quality is present, you clearly see right there, right there. Not taken in, unshaken, that's how you develop the heart. Ardently doing what should be done today, for who knows, tomorrow, death. There is no bargaining with mortality and his mighty hordes. Whoever lives thus ardently, relentlessly, both day and night, has truly had an auspicious day, so says the peaceful sage. Again, another kind of type of poetry or resonance. And then the last, Venerable Jnanananda. And then we're going to use Bhante Sujato's, Venerable Sujato's is the basic one. Okay. Let one not trace back the past or yearn for the future yet to come. That which is past is left behind, unattained is the yet to come. But that which is present he discerns with insight as and when it comes, the immovable, the non-irritable. In that state should the wise one grow. Today itself should one bestir, tomorrow death may come, who knows? For no bargain can we strike with death, who has his mighty hosts. But one who dwells thus ardently by day, by night, untiringly, him the tranquil sage has called, the ideal lover of solitude. A slightly different flavor in the last line. Okay, so let's get into the verse part of it, where I've pulled out some of the Pali words, and then we'll get into the exposition with more of a practice, what dhammas we apply to help us do this, not to run back to the past or the future or toward the future. So Venerable Sujato translates it as don't run back to the past. And the Pali, to adjust my glasses here, I'm getting new glasses next week, I hope. Let's see. Don't run back to the past. Atitang nanva gameya. And I've clipped some of the definition things from, I have this reference up here above where I said ideal solitude. It's an essay by Venerable Jnanananda. I also suggest looking at Bhikkhu Bodhi's YouTube video on this. There are several others as well, but those two in particular for looking at the Pali aspects. So, Atitang nanva gameya. This phrase helps us to understand the significance of the Buddha's constant advice to let go the past. The exposition clearly reveals that it is not so much the mere recollection of the past that is the bondage. So we can remember things. It's the Buddha praises sati, remembering. It is the element of delight, the nandi, or desire and lust, chandaraga, where one finds the stickiness, the bondage. It is the tendency to retrace, revive, relive, and relish the past that has to be eliminated. And hence there comes in the necessity of detachment, even with regard to thought processes. So it's not about cutting off our ability to remember. We very much need that to function in the world. And we also need it for our Dhamma practice, to remind, to have a recollectedness about us. The next line is, don't anticipate the future. Na patikanke anagatang. And in this case, just like in the past, It is not to delight or desire in lust, because that's what gives rise to this yearning, longing, or anxiety that we often have around the future. So I really do like the way he pulls out the anxiety that we're often like, why do we keep running to the future in our thoughts? Usually it's because there's something stirred up. We're anxious about something. So it's the yearning for the future, a simple expression of choice and wish in regard to future courses of action in the everyday life of the Arahant is not altogether denied. So he's saying that even the Arahant is going to need to make choices, is going to need to, have some planning for the life, but they're not sticky with it. They're not, really, it's like if it comes out this way, okay. If it comes out that way, okay. Let's put some, let's plan the trip and see how it goes. So I'll have a link so you can read more of this if you would like. So what's past is left behind and the future has not arrived. And any present phenomena, and phenomena here is the translation of the word Dhamma, which is all conditioned things. So anything happening here and now, you clearly discern in every case. And the discernment is vipassati, vipassana, our insight practice. So any questions or comments about past, present, future, and the non-delighting? And we'll circle back to it. So if they're not here right now, there'll be space for them going forward. All right. So we'll continue unfaltering and unshakable. I love this set of words. The unfaltering, the unshakable. Asanghirang asangkupang. And this also is from that Ideal Solitude, this clip. The stable and steady nature of the emancipated mind is indicated in these two terms. And together they form an epithet of Nibbana. If you see the text, not written with the diacritics, this is because this was written before typewriters and what, had all of the markings. So when you see double A's, that means an A with a line over it, a long A. You can kind of hear a dot and an M is an M with an under or over dot. So we luckily don't tend to have to read these formations nowadays, but when you see a piece, that's what's happening. So this forms an epithet of Nibbana, this stable and steady nature of the mind. This is what we're aiming for. Although it does not occur in the list of the epithets for Nibbana, which that would be a fun sutta exploration to go through all of the names for Nibbana. In that list, there is Duvang, the stable state. Okay, so the first word, asanghira, is a word often used in the canon to enhance the sense of stability, and is often combined with words like firm or the expert. It's immovability. Its ability to stand one's ground. So this is not saying get blown around by it. This is saying we can be steady. We can be steady in this present moment. And some of the shades of meaning associated with the word are these nuances of steadiness and stability. The opposite is tending to get pulled off of balance by our desires. Okay, I will. And like I said, I'll share this so you can get the full text. Asangkupang, another wonderful word. So this again is aiming for stability, and the underlying word kupa is meaning such as movable, shakeable, excitable, irritable. So you'll see in one of them that talks about non-irritability. So this is another aspect that I think that when we talk about the present moment, when we're off balance, there's often a quality of irritation that has arisen. So when in this one, it's a negation of irritability and excitability and shakeability. This formation has a lot to do with our emotional tonality. Uh, and we can be pulled off of things like a trauma trigger might pull us off. A anxiety toward the future can pull us off, or this irritability of they're doing what in this present moment, just because we have a habit and opinion about how it should be. And if we're in shoulds, we're usually not in the present moment. So this is talking about being unshakable, undisturbed by the phenomena, the conditions, the Dhamma, little d Dhamma of all things as they are. Like this last sentence, the stability of Nibbana as a psychological state is as much due to the absence of repulsion as it is to that of attraction. So we're not falling away or pushing away or falling towards or leaning into states. And particularly on the cushion practice or walking meditation, other meditation practices, this is extremely important that we're looking for, are we in a steady, balanced state? And we talk about, in meditation practice, pull up, relax, settle, take a posture that is, steady and that we can keep our alertness, but we're not tight. The same thing is in our psychological state. Can we have a psychological state that is open, soft, warm, strong, but not tight? Okay. And then I love this next line, having known that, foster it. Okay, so yes, we do have those moments, no matter what our history is or our anticipated future, and no matter what our current present moment is, this is where memory can be helpful. We've had those times where we've been steady, where it's been relaxed, where we felt safe. And we felt safe enough to kind of slow the thinking and just enjoy, not in an attached way, but in a very relaxed way. Sometimes we have to search a bit in our memory, but the next time you have that moment, I suggest really bring the sati, the mindfulness up. The sensations of this moment of ease are like this. I do this a lot with the Brahmavihara practice. When the Brahmaviharas are present in me, it feels like this. I note it, sati. I remember it, sati. And these moments can be few and far between, but when we have them, we can hold them and say, I know this. I'm not, attaching to it, but I know it. I know it's possible. So that when I am in that state of imbalance in the future, I can use sati, recollection. I have been balanced in the past. It is possible now. And I find that can really help give me some spaciousness in my body and mind so that I can foster it further. I use a practice of breathing in all directions to give some sense of space, to soften and stabilize. I use the metta, the warming of the heart, and I use the boundless qualities radiating that out into the world so that there is this kind of steady, stable bubble of goodness that I'm practicing within. So I'm fostering it. Then in the sutta it says, today's the day to keenly work. So this is not without effort. I talk about relaxation a lot. There is an efforting in our relaxation because we have to remember it. We have to remember it and bring it up and foster it. So this is where right effort comes in, where we're setting aside, letting go of the things that are not conducive for the wholesome qualities at this moment. We're cultivating the wholesome qualities so that that is our natural disposition going into the future. But the work is done keenly in this moment. Who knows? Tomorrow may bring death. So I did funeral chanting yesterday for someone's father-in-law who died the night before. And if we look at a couple of the verses from the funeral chanting, here you can see that conditions are impermanent. Their nature is to rise and fall. Having arisen, they cease. Their stilling is true happiness. Now, this is not just talking about death. This is talking about the nature of reality. You know, that when we're not going after something, if we just see that things come and go, come and go, come and go, the stilling, we're not just on the roller coaster, we know that things come and go. That stilling is where the happiness, the sukha, is. And the next verse in the chanting is that to remember, you know, to put in the effort, because all too soon this body will lie on the ground, cast off, bereft of consciousness, like a useless scrap of wood. So this is the destination for these 5 khandas, this body, this, you know, the set of aggregates that hopefully we'll have time to get into. So with that in mind, we know that we can't strike a bargain with death or with, you know, we can do medical interventions, we can do these kind of things for a time, but we can't stop this process of decay because we have bodies. This is what happens. Remembering that, it can help bring up that ardency, the effort for right here and now. So one who keenly meditates like this, tireless all day and night. Again, the efforting is there. It's tireless. And to be tireless, I really, really sense you need to be relaxed, present and relaxed. That's who has one fine night. So declares the peaceful sage. And this is Muni. This is referring back to the Buddha here. So it's a poetic sense of that. All right, so that is the summary part of this sutta. Now we get into what's called the exposition so now that we've said what the goal is, let go of the past, let go of the future, be here in the present. Don't attach to the present either, just be, you know, aware of it and follow the right efforting so that we can become steady and stable and one-pointed and happy. Okay. John, I see your mouth moving, but I can't hear. Is that a question or a statement for here? See, my audio seems okay, so you can put it in the chat if I'm missing something, any of you, because I'm not hearing. Okay, so we'll continue with the exposition. And how do you run back to the past? You muster delight there, thinking, I had such a form in the past, I had such feelings, perceptions, choice, consciousness in the past. So this is the 5 aggregates. And it's not so much about thinking, oh, my body was like that in the past, or I remember feeling really happy or really scared or really sad, or I had a perception that that was a safe and wonderful environment, that was a scary environment, that was a tree, that was a rabbit, that was a whatever. choice is the sankharas, that in the past I had such thoughts, I remembered such stories or consciousness, I was in such and such a situation. Um, it was like this in my mindscape. So it's not that we don't have those memories. It's that we don't delight. It's here it's the Nandi. And I'm a little concerned with delight as the word choice here, just even though that really is what the Pali is talking about. In this particular case, it's talking about an uplift, a wanting, whatever. But I think I like to also think of it as lighting upon and sticking like a fly trap. Because some of the things that come up when I've been on the cushion aren't things that I would call delightful, and yet they seem very sticky, and there seems to be a whole lot of me going on in there, and it's something that's definitely pulling me off of balance. So in this case, it is talking specifically about the delight, but I really think this applies to anything that's sucking us in and creating a sense of me and repeating the process of me. I had a teacher once who says, "Oh yeah, it sounds like your meditation is me." And yeah, that kind of humor can help break up that like, oh yeah, there I go again. And not to spend a whole lot of time and effort in that. So that's how you run back to the past. And as you can imagine, the how not to run back to the past is you don't muster delight when these thoughts about the past emerge, or the sensations around the past emerge. There are a couple of other suttas that kind of talk to this. John, do you want to make a comment before we go on while we're in the past?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, great. I'm glad it works.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad it works. Yeah, thanks for the meeting, Aya. Yeah, thanks for sharing your thoughts with us. Um, I'm wondering about cases where I go into the past and come up with a grievance or resistance,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm going into the past to kind of protect myself with anxieties about the future, like, oh, this thing happened or that thing, and they did this, and now I have to be careful. And that seems a little bit different than this description of
I
going
agree.
into the past.
Yeah, I agree. It is a little bit different, and that's why I say what this particular sutta exactly says, but let's pull in some other suttas that kind of round it out, because although it's specific in this sutta, definitely the Buddha does talk about going to the past for some of the reasons that you've just mentioned. It's like, I need to evaluate the past because such and such a thing happened, and maybe I want to fix it or rectify it or get them to admit that that even happened. Or I need to review the past so I can plan for my safety in the future or someone else's safety. Or, for me, it's often around safety. Um, so that aspect does come into play here as well. There are times and places to practice discernment for reviewing, understanding, and for going into the future and setting some plans. It is far less than we imagine it is, the times and places for that. Our whole psychological structure around psychotherapy tends to really land there. It is a tool. It can be a very valuable tool, but it's not our only tool. It's just that that's the area that they're very good at. It's like when you go to the physical therapist, they're going to work on the bending of your knee rather than, other aspects of your well-being. The same when you go to the psychologist, they're going to work on with those tools. So here the Buddha's rounding that out for the ultimate aim, because the aims are different. When you go to the physical therapist, their aim is to maybe get you to walk again. The psychotherapist is get you to function in normalcy, our world again, or better in both cases. So what the Buddha is aiming for is nibbana, the release, the letting go. And so, yes, I want to use the tools of the physical therapist or the mental therapist to be able to strengthen and steady for the aim of letting go. So I do feel like it's the pyramid of supports. If you don't have enough steady and safety to be able to go into the actual letting go process, you can kind of unbalance. But I would say don't dwell there. Don't dwell in the psychological or the physical fixes. Really let go of the thinking and the grasping after. When you can get to the root sense of this is the nature of things. Things are conditioned. People do what people do. People did what people did. People will do in the future what people will do. I can resource myself here and now by having the capacity to open, to hold, to be unshakable. That's what's being cultivated here. So when those things do come up, and we're talking about looking at the ultimate nature of things and the ultimate freedom, the best course of action is for that, let it go. Yes, people did these things. Right now, I'm going to let it go. And the mind can be just, but, I really need to figure this out. Then go to the body. It feels like this. When I get myself stirred up, it feels like this. I was going to mention a little bit later, but just to make sure it comes in, it was about 10 years ago. I was with one of my bhikkhuni teachers, and we visited a bhikkhu who was giving a talk. And he said this amazingly shocking thing. He says, I don't think much anymore. And I'm like, what? Why would you even want to do that? And then as he talked about the peacefulness of not thinking, the peacefulness, and he seemed pretty with it. He seemed pretty, stable and like completely able to give a talk, obviously had the capacity to think. What he was saying is, when I need to think, I think. When I don't need to think, I realize it's more peaceful not to think. And I found the same thing is true when, the trauma triggers come up. When I need to deal with a situation that's similar to something that occurred into the past that had very negative consequences, I need to deal with a situation. When I am not in that environment, when there is no danger present here, I do not need to be reprocessing. I found as I looked at the amount of effort it was taking for me to process and try to scaffold up safety for the future, I discovered I was draining myself a lot by the process of review and consideration and construction. And I would just give myself what if I don't spend that energy on that right now? And Ajahn Brahm would say, tell yourself you've got plenty of time at 3 p.m. to give this all the attention it needs. So promise yourself you will, or I'm going to talk with so-and-so, and then we'll work it through. They'll give me some support in dealing with this. I found that really helpful. So that right now, what if I just turn towards this exercise of being in the body, breathing, and allow that to be my attention right here and now. And the more that I just ran that experiment, it might last 3 seconds, it might last 30, it might last 3 minutes. Over time, my practice naturally was like, that thought about the past arose. I don't need to go there. And it became a new conditioning. Let's see if I think one of these. Yeah, yeah. So this second one down here, the monk is called a master of the pathways of thought modes. Whatever thought they wish to think, that's what they think. Whatever thought they do not wish to think, they do not think. They cut off craving, turning back the fetter, and by fully understanding conceit, put an end to ill. So this is the sutta itself saying, what I heard from that bhikkhu and what my own practice has been unveiling for me is that it is possible to train the mind so that we're not, my preceptor had said, it's like we're at the water slide park and we're walking along and all the little slides are off to the side. And there's that one that, wow, our foot is so close to it, we're just down it. And then with some training of our mindfulness, we're like, oh, I'm approaching that slide, And so eventually, like we put a gate in front, some sort of don't slip sign or something. But still often we'll trip over it and down we go, And eventually there gets to be a clarity. It's not that my vision doesn't go, oh yeah, there's that slide. But I'm steady and stable enough that I just walk right on by. And if the deck is particularly slippery that day, I may be too close. I may go. But over time, it's like I know how to A, dry up the deck so that my conditions aren't supportive for that. And B, on the times where it's gotten all messy up there, I still have so much balance. I can just go right on by and go, yeah, there's that memory. Happened for me last night. Someone wrote something that would have been very triggering to me in the past. And I was amazed to read the exact same words that is like, oh, wow, that hurts. They don't see me. And instead go, oh, wow, compassion and love. This heartfelt warmth arose of like, oh, we're seeing things differently. We don't understand this the same way. So it's a more factual statement, but it isn't unemotional. The emotional tonality that occurred was what I had cultivated, a heart of warmth, openness, and love. So this is the transformation. And I'm talking over a decade from hearing that bhikkhu's talk to now. So, all right, well, I'm going to continue so that we go through the sutta and more of this can arise at the end. Okay, so again, I'll share this document so you can see more of the examples in here. Oh, this one here, it's how to, like that concept of, going down the slide. In the Buddhist times, they probably didn't have a great deal of water slide parks. So, it's the courses of the rivers, the streams. And maybe you want to dam one of them up so that you don't, that's not the path that it is, the water's flowing. So from this sutta, it's in the Sutta Nipata, it says, whatever streams there are in the world, Ajita, that's who he's speaking to. So said the Lord, mindfulness keeps them in check. This, I say, is the restraint of streams. But by wisdom are they damned. And damned is meaning D-A-M-M, not D-A-M-N. Although I guess in some, they go away, they stop. You don't go down that one anymore. It's by wisdom. And to get to wisdom, I think we need to, in this sutta, get to the meditative and mindfulness practice of being in the present moment so that wisdom has the space, the clarity, the data for it to naturally arise. And then it will very naturally put a barrier between that habit pattern and the past. But it takes time to build it. Okay, so moving on to the future. I think you can kind of get the pattern here already. How do you anticipate the future? You muster delight in that. So it's like, oh, when then I'll be happy. Then I'll be successful. When such and such, when I feel such and such, when I'm with so and so to feel such and such. When we're concocting, even when I let go of the past, my future will be good. We can get ourselves in so many ways when we're delighting on what could be in the future. And even in monastic life, oh, when I get my secluded retreat, you know, well, right here and now, there is a eka, a solitude, a oneness that is possible. I shouldn't be grasping after, in a couple of weeks, I'll be in seclusion, have all that time to meditate. Well, actually, it's pretty nice already. Suvijana's in retreat, so it's pretty quiet around here. But looking to the future would be squandering this right now. And yet, we have the present. And even in the present, we can falter. We can stumble, we can get off balance. And this one is slightly phrased differently. It's when an unlearned, ordinary person has not seen the noble ones and is neither skilled nor trained in the teaching of the noble ones. They've not seen true persons and are neither skilled nor trained in the teaching of the true persons. So basically, this is saying when a person is navigating on societal values and norms, and they haven't met the Dhamma teaching and attempted to put it into practice and training. This is when they're in the present. Oh, if I go to see, which I don't do anymore, but when I would go to the theater to see a show and get immersed in the show, or for a book, I zoned into so many fantasy lands by jumping into the pages of the book, or Netflix, or a good meal, or it's not that there isn't pleasure or some sense of relaxation in these activities. It's when I'm not seeing them clearly. And it's when I'm not giving my attention and time to the Dhamma, as opposed to giving attention and time to just following the ads. I did one talk where I brought in, the follow your passion, just do it, the gum wrapper that tells you this is going to bring you happiness, all of these things. So this is what not faltering amidst the present is, not saying, oh, this is going to be like this forever, or I want this to be like this forever, or I'm lost in it, or this is me. I am the one giving this talk right now, and aren't I awesome, terrible, whatever. That's getting lost in the phenomena. It's where I begin to regard form as self, or as having form in self, or self in form. These are going through the kind of bigger senses of, will I exist forever? Do I exist in this body? Does my mind exist outside? These aspects. So am I attaching to some sort of mental system that says I will be, or I have been, this is me, when it goes, I'm gone, this isn't me, when it goes, I continue. It's getting caught in these kind of things. The same thing through with the feelings, perceptions, the volitional stories, and our consciousness itself. That's how we falter in the present. Okay. he then repeats the summary, the verse, and then says, this is what it is to have an excellent night, or a ideal practice, solitude of not being in the past, not being in the present or future with attachments, and not being in the present with attachments. So I'm going to go over the 4 suttas, the basic message, and then we'll open it up. So there are 4 suttas with this same or similar titles, and they all appear in a row in the Majjhima Nikaya, 131 through 134. We just went through the first one, and this is where the Buddha is speaking to the assembly there, and using the 5 aggregates as the basis of the teaching of how not to grab onto the past or the future or the present. The next sutta is Ananda speaking. So the Buddha's been somewhere else. I get the impression he might have actually been nearby and hearing it. And then he comes out and says, oh, what was it you were talking about? And so Ananda says, oh, I was just talking about that teaching on the, excellent practice. And the Buddha praises Ananda for sharing that teaching. In the next one, 133, there's a deva who comes to a monastic and says, hey, do you remember that teaching? The Buddha gave this summary and exposition. No, I don't. Do you? No, I don't remember it either. And so the monastic goes to the Buddha, and the Buddha just tells him the summary, just gives him the verse. And then he thinks, oh, well, I really should kind of know the whole thing. So the monks he's with, they go to Mahakachana, and Mahakachana gives them a teaching to explain again, what is it to let go of the past and the future and the present. Except it's slightly different in that Mahakachana uses the 6 sense spaces. And for me, this is often a more resonant way of working with it. What is my eye attached to? My nose, my mouth, taste, sound, hearing, the body, and the mind. As a kid, I was, after a very short time of getting repeatedly told by my mother of, don't be bored or I'll give you something to do. I realized, oh, I've got my mind. I always have my mind with me. I can, think about so many things. So I really got into that, the mind sense as my escape hatch. So Mahakachana talks about seeing where delight is occurring and attachment is occurring in the 6 senses, and gives that as a teaching. And the monastics go back to the Buddha and say, hey, Venerable Mahakachana told us this. And the Buddha says, yes, if I had been saying it, I would have said it just so, which is a little strange because the Buddha has been talking about it in the sense of the aggregates. I love this because what it's saying is, if you're getting to the essence of the Dhamma that underlies this teaching, that is as the Buddha would have said it. So when he talks about Dhammadina or others where people come back and say, well, so-and-so said this, and the Buddha says, yeah, I would have said it just like that. He's saying what that person said is Dhamma, and it meets. So when we use tools from other aspects that help us to get to this truth about the Dhamma, that is still Buddha Dhamma. And there are suttas that talk about how Buddha Dhamma is what is meeting the things of, I'm becoming more content, I'm becoming free, I'm letting go of these unwholesome states. Then you can trust that this is Dhamma that's arising. And so the Buddha praises the discourse that Mahakachana has given. And the last one is kind of fun. There's a deva and a monastic again, but this time this is like they're in their next lifetime. They've been in a previous lifetime where they didn't remember this same teaching from a previous Buddha. And the one who becomes the monastic in this lifetime says, I'm gonna learn this so that next time I'm able to teach you this. Well, so it comes to this lifetime, and the deva goes to the monastic and says, hey, that teaching about, an excellent night, can you remind me about it? And he's like, actually I can't, I don't remember it. And the deva at least remembers the verse, because the Buddha's been teaching up in the heavens as well, and he remembers that part. So then the monastic goes to the Buddha and gets the full teaching. But the phrase I love from this one is that the deva says, it is beneficial and relates to the fundamentals of the spiritual life. And so then he suggests that the monastic go learn it and bring it back. It is beneficial and relates to the fundamentals of the spiritual life. So this practice of letting go of the past, letting go of the future, letting go of attachment in the present is the fundamentals of this practice that we are doing together. So how about if I read it one more time, and I'll turn off the recording and we can continue to look at this maybe in a more personal way. Let not a person revive the past, or on the future build their hopes. For the past has been left behind, and the future has not been reached. Instead, with insight, let them see each presently arisen state. Let them know that and be sure of it invincibly, unshakably. Today, the effort must be made. Tomorrow, death may come, who knows? No bargain with mortality can keep death and its hordes away. But one who dwells thus ardently, relentlessly, by day, by night, that is one, the peaceful sage has said, who has had a single excellent night. Okay. So that is the discourse